Joining us to break down this verdict is trial attorney Bob Hilla and criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf. Thank you both so much for joining us. Bob, let's start with you. What do you make of the verdict for Travis McMichael specifically?
Well, specifically, I think that the big telling part of that is they didn't buy, his whole idea that he had a reasonable basis to believe a crime was committed in the first place, which would have been the justification for the encounter. And also that they're obviously with the false imprisonment that was a basis for the felony murder part of this charge too.
And Jeffrey, what do you think it came down to for that jury to reach this conviction guilty on all counts for Travis?
I think what it came down to is there finally being some accountability in this country for this type of action. And what we have been seeing and what we just saw in the Rittenhouse case was self defense being twisted and turned and used. And I think that what they most tried to do in this case, even more than the citizen's arrest, was to try and say that when you chase a black man down in the street and hold a shotgun to him, that he's not allowed to try and defend himself, but you're allowed to shoot him when he does. And this jury got it right. And they are going to hold these men accountable for what they did. It's not going to bring Ahmaud Arbery back, but they're going to hold them accountable for what they did. And I think it's really, really important to not get lost in the fact that the original prosecutors in this case, because as you guys were just talking about, this is the third set. The original prosecutors in this case decided no charges for their friend Gregory McMichael and his friend and his son. And this jury and these prosecutors got it right.
Absolutely. And Jeffrey, I'm curious, there's a lot of talk about the Kenosha trial versus this one, or the Rittenhouse trial rather. What do you think the main differences are, and why was there such a different outcome?
Well, I think this trial wasn't a close call. In the Rittenhouse case, I think it was a close call of what was self-defense, did he retreat, and were they chasing him, right? And obviously that jury said yes, that he tried to retreat and they chased him and he was defending himself. This case, it was not a close call. As a defense attorney, I almost hesitate to say it, but the defense attorneys in this case were basically the villains in a John Grisham novel. They tried the case in the small county, hoping to get a jury that would walk white men for killing a black man. That's what they did. It was blatant. They kicked off black jurors, and there was really no defense in this case. It was so clear that you can't just chase somebody down in two trucks, point a shotgun at them for doing nothing but going jogging, and then kill them when they try to get away from you. It was so clear. It would have been beyond the pale for any other verdict in this case.
That crowd certainly had a lot of passion in response to Ahmaud Arbery's father talking about his feelings in the courtroom. There was also Ben Crump, the Arbery family attorney. Jeffrey, just describe what's going through your head when you're seeing all of those people with such strong reactions to this verdict and to this father who is finally getting justice.
It shows you that verdicts like this mean more to the general community around the family than an average verdict would. Okay, this is more than Ahmaud Arbery's family in a vacuum. They are there and they suffered the loss, and it should be about them. But it's also about their community at large, and it's about the African American and Black community at large finally seeing lynchers brought to justice, because that is exactly what happened here. Make no mistake, Ahmaud Arbery was running through a neighborhood and he was modern day lynched. Nowadays, they don't carry a noose and look for a tree. They carry their gun with the Confederate flag on their truck. And that's what happened to him. And he finally was able to be the one that got the verdict. And so it means more than just to this family. It's everybody. It's all of us.
Jeffrey, do you think that toenail comment hurt the defense team? Do you think that the jury maybe picked up on that and felt the same way that so many people did in really taking an issue with it?
I think that we as viewers and the court, personnel that were there that saw more than the jury did had even better context on that comment than the jury could have had, because we got to see the arguments they were making when the jury was excused from the room. We don't want to see any more black pastors in here. We are comfortable trying this case in Glenn County to Glenn County jurors with a smile on their face. We got all of that. And so the jury had a much smaller snapshot. And yeah, it wasn't flattering. I said it before and I'll say it again. These defense attorneys quite frankly, were the villains in the John Grisham novel that was this case. And they, in my opinion, and it may not be a popular one in the defense community, but they are the reason that we in the defense community have a bad name, because it's like we'll do anything for a verdict, and they really would have done anything for the verdict that they couldn't get.
Right. Jeffrey, as Bob just mentioned, laws in Georgia changed because of this case. What's your reaction to that, and what sort of ripple effect do you think it will have?
Well, they did change. And as Bob was saying, the citizen's arrest law was repealed because that was the initial excuse here. Didn't come up a lot in the trial because they didn't have a lot of evidence to show that they were acting in good faith on that. But I hope that this is something that spreads a little bit further, because Ahmaud Arbery's family walks in the footsteps of Trayvon Martin's family, who lost to a stand your ground law. They walk in the footprints of Mike Brown's family, who lost to governmental immunity on police officers. All of these types of laws are what systemic racism has hid behind to kill Black men for doing nothing other than either minor offenses like Mike Brown or nothing like Trayvon Martin and Ahmaud Arbery other than existing. And that is what needs to change in this country.
Gentlemen, what do you make of her performance? Bob, let's start with you.
Well, I thought she was very focused. She didn't stray. She didn't let people rattle her. In terms of the statement she gave after the case, and you always have to be careful with that. You still have a sentencing issue. You're going to have appeals. So you have to stick close to a script and not stray. So she did that. She said positive comments about the system. She said, how the evidence generally supported the result, and then she ended, as many prosecutors do, that justice was done. And I think she worked hard during the case. It was evidence from the jury result that they agreed with that, to try and get the result that she did and the justice that she wanted to for Mr. Arbery.
And Jeffrey, how do you think that Linda did?
Well, I think they could have used her in Kenosha, I'll tell you that much. She was one of the more skilled prosecutors I've seen on this network. She was organized. She was arguing the law when the defense was trying to make objections that were based in fairness and what's nice and what's good and what feels good to them. She would come back with case law. She was intelligent. Well, she is intelligent. She was a very, very capable prosecutor and one of the better ones I've seen on these airwaves. And she just did a phenomenal job in the face of, a throng of defense attorneys coming in and trying to play the old boy network in their little county. And she came in from Cobb County, all guns blazing, pardon the term.
Well, I think one of the things in listening to him that you think he's trying to signify here is he's underscoring the importance of this case, and that hopefully, what happened today, is an historical moment, and that it's part of a wider movement, and that, we're not as far apart as maybe sometimes we think we are, and that when we do come together to look at things fairly, that we can reach a result that moves us forward. And I think those were really kind of the tones he was searching for. At least that's what I kind of grasped from what I listened to.
Right. Jeffrey, what do you make of this verdict and how monumental it is, especially for the Black community who was seeking justice for Ahmaud Arbery? What did you make of Reverend Al Sharpton's comments?
Well, not too bad for one of those Black pastors that Goff wanted to kick out of town, was it? The history of this country, the Black pastor is the one who moves us forward. From Martin Luther King to Al Sharpton to Jesse Jackson, that is somebody who speaks from his heart and somebody who speaks from experience and speaks from the marches that lead to justice like today.
Thanks so much, Jeffrey. We have to take a quick break here at the Law and Crime Network. We'll have more coverage on the death of Ahmaud Arbery when we return.